Hey guys, welcome to the Aviation Surf podcast. And on this episode, we've got Rohit Satish, who is a flight instructor back in Canada, who's been flying for quite a while now. And so today we're going to be discussing all about pilot training in Canada, how he went through, what influenced him to become a pilot in the first place, and all of the other aspects of this podcast today. So before we proceed on with the episode, Rohit, let me ask you a few questions about yourself. Where are you currently? What are you doing? And how's it been going back in Canada? How's the winter treating you?
First, hello, Junaid. Pleasure to meet you. Currently living in Winnipeg, Manitoba, also known as Winterpeg. How is the winter treating me? Not very well. It's cold. I'm not used to it. I've been here for 2 years. I'm still not used to the winter. It's something that I guess you just never get used to because our summers have plus 30, and then the winters drop all the way to minus 30. Some days it's 22 degrees. At the end of this week, we are expecting minus 25. That's the temperature difference here, and you just don't get used to it. It's not consistent. Like a consistent minus 20, you'd eventually get used to, but this variation is something that I just cannot get used to it. So it's interesting. The winter, that's all I could say. I'm from a tropical country, so I'm from Kerala, so I'm not used to it. No, not used to it. We don't get a lot of snow here. It's just dead cold.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think you'll get used to it once in a while once you start living. Now moving on. So what influenced you to become a pilot in the first place? What influenced you? What made you choose this career? Made you choose this industry? Can you please explain a little bit about that?
It's pretty much a cliche story, man. I mean, everyone has that. Like, you see a plane, you go up and you be like, wow, that's a pretty cool job to have. And that's basically mine. Not even kidding. I used to move around a lot as a kid, so we were in and out of airports. My dad worked offshore, so again, in and out of airports. I always used to see these pilots walk into the airport with a uniform and that small baggage they have, and it bit me. The curiosity bit me, and I'm like, what do you want to be? I want to be that guy. I want to be that guy in the uniform with the briefcase, walking in, going into a plane, and just going to some other country. I don't know where, right? So that interested me a lot. The idea that you could fly a machine with so many people on board. It's basically a glorified bus driver, if you ask.
Which is in fact true, to be honest. Yeah,
It
it
is, right?
is.
It
But
isn't. It
yeah,
is. It is. And yeah, I was. It's a very cliche story. I always envy the pilots when they walked in. I wish I was them, and I'm working my way towards them, towards being one of them. So
pretty much straightforward, like any other child. Because all of us have been through airports once in a while, and we've seen them carrying briefcases. We've seen their uniform. We've seen them walking throughout the crowd, and we used to think, "Oh my God, I want to be what he is." And what he does
exactly,
is that's literally
exactly.
what I used to think. Like you stated before, you don't want to be in a cubicle in some corner of the office flipping paper. Now I've seen you being an engineer before you switched into this career. So what made you switch it? Now, as cliche as it sounds, like you said before, that you loved to be a pilot when you were a child, but you took the route of being an engineer as well. So what made you choose this career now?
Honestly, it's backed a lot by family support. It's one thing to say I'm going to be a pilot and do it the Bollywood style, just quit your job, throw your stuff in the air, and just walk out. There's a lot that goes in the background, as in family support, financial support, getting you to Canada, getting you to flight training. It's very, very expensive. So I've always held back the idea of being a pilot just because it's expensive. And when my parents finally did tell me that, hey, I think we'd be able to manage, go for it. I'm like, well, this is my opportunity. I either take it now or I miss it forever, right? And that was a moment when I questioned myself. And there's something I always tell to my fellow students, people who ask me, hey, do I take the jump and be a pilot? And I tell them one thing: 10 years from now, sitting in your engineering cubicle, if you look up and see a plane, would you wish to be in that plane? Or 10 years from now, you are flying in a plane at 20,000 feet. Would you look down and say, damn, I wish I was that engineer in that tiny cubicle? If if you want to be in the plane, then take the jump, provided you have the support, provided you have the finances. And yeah, it's an expensive industry. I'm not going to worry about it. It's expensive.
It is, and I'm suffering from it as well because once you get a glitch for it, it's very difficult to leave because once you start flying, it's something we keep going back to. Now, moving on, now you're pretty famous with the video of what Harvs Air actually made about you.
I
And
haven't heard I'm famous. You're the first one telling me that. So,
come
okay.
on, you've gotten quite a bit of views now, so I'm pretty certain a lot of people have seen it. That's one of the reasons why I've got you as well because Why did you choose Harvs Air? Why Canada? And what made you choose this country where there are a lot of other countries, such as the United States, that's one of the best VFR countries to fly in. So what made you choose Canada?
One reason why I chose Canada, it's easy to immigrate to. Like, you invest US dollars into a country, into a field where it's expensive as it is. And I questioned myself as to what is the return of investment in that country? Like, would I ever get to be a flight instructor there? And knowing how US immigration laws are tough and how hard it is to get a green card or whatever it is that works on there, I made a decision that US might be the best place to fly, but if I'm not getting a return of investment in the dollars I spent, I'm not going there. Like, if I'm investing in dollars, I need to earn in dollars just for the amount of money that I've invested, right? Like, you spend $50,000 and then you try and earn that in rupees, it's going to take you a lot more time. So I decided, let me see what Canada's immigration states, and they had a program called the post-graduation work permit, which is very interesting. So I decided I'll take a gamble. I'll see how it goes. And I chose Canada first. Then I started thinking about the schools. Like I said, I've always known Harvs Air. Harvs Air has got a huge fan following. We have a huge alumni in India itself. There are a lot of pilots who are from Harvs Air. And I just knew about it, so I did a little bit of Google research, looked at Harvs Air, compared it with other schools, saw the cost. They were pretty average considering how famous of a school they are. They were not overpriced. Saw the planes. They had more than 12 152s in each location. I'm like, wow. Looked at the instructors. They had a lot of instructors. I tried my best to find a bad review. I really couldn't find a bad review of Harvs. So I decided I'll go for Harvs. And then I decided, what's Winnipeg? And when I Googled, I'm like, minus 25. I'm like, oh, that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
And that kind of made me feel even more happy about my decision. To come from a country that's plus 25 constantly and go into a country where you have these temperatures, I don't know, it begged my curiosity. I had to go see what it felt like. And I'll be very frank, I am not enjoying it.
But you didn't have high expectations as well. Yeah, I think it played out well for you.
Yeah, it's just the weather part. The place is beautiful. The people are amazing, man. The friends I made in Canada are really nice. It's just the weather. I've still got to get used to it. It'll happen with time.
Like you said before, you went through the flight school. You saw how many flight instructors they've got, how many planes they've got as well. I think that's a very key aspect of selecting flight schools as well, because if you see they've got good financial stability, that's one of the reasons why you should choose flight schools. They've got very few of the planes, they've got very few instructors. That means they don't have a lot of business going on. But Harvs Air, I'm going to be very biased for them, is because they're pretty straightforward. Whatever the price they put in, it's pretty straightforward. That depends on you, how much average hours you've got, and it depends on that. They're pretty straightforward in that aspect. Not gonna lie, they do take a lot of time to actually reply back to the emails.
Yes, sir.
I want to be very truthful in that aspect, but then I think they're pretty good. But in terms of a lot of other flight schools.
Yeah. The administration department. Yeah, I had my hurdles with them when I was joining as a student, and it's pretty much the Harvs Air standard. Like, they take their own time to reply to the emails. I sent them a mail January 2019, I believe, and I got a reply in the month of March saying that, hey, here's the application form. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's do it.
Well, honestly, it was not the best impression. It was not the best impression.
Yeah, it is not.
But then again, this is me Googling reviews. It's so easy to find bad reviews on the internet. Try finding some of Harvs. Try. I tried. I couldn't. And I trusted it. Okay, you might be a slow admin. I applied. They took their own time to process it. But it's been worth it. The wait was worth it. I applied in Jan and I got in September. So it was a 6-7 month wait for an admission too. Because they said we don't have slots June. Like, sure, I'll take September. I'll take January. I don't mind.
Pretty straightforward, and they do have quite a few intakes going on throughout the years. And I think it was pretty pre-COVID when they were actually bustling with students. And they had a lot of students, a lot of things going on. With pre-COVID, aviation was in complete boom, and after that, when it just completely went down. But then I'm really hopeful it's picking back again. So yeah, it's really good. Fingers crossed. Yeah, fingers crossed. You went through Harvs Air. you went through the immigration programs of Canada, you were thinking quite ahead of a lot of other students who don't do that. Why did you choose modular program? And before that, I think why didn't you choose cadet programs? I think you did go through a few of the cadet programs before. If do you mind me asking why did you
Yeah.
made a switch back to modular?
The thing with the modular program is self-paced. Like, it's going to be pretty ballsy of me at the age of 24 to say, I can go into a cadet program and I can get my solo done in 15 hours. I do not know anything about planes. So to put myself in that pressure and to put myself in that restriction where I have to go with the syllabus didn't work out for me. And plus just the expenses of it. Again, boils down to return of investment, right? You're spending almost 2 crore, almost, is it a crore and a half?
Yeah, pretty much.
Or pretty much, right?
Yeah.
1.2 crores for a Indigo. Sheesh, that's expensive, man. Thinking about that gives me the jitters. And they go through the PPL, CPL, multi IFR stage all together, right? Now with the modular program, when I applied to Harvs, I applied for the CPL multi IFR. Halfway down, COVID hit. Now I had to change my plans, and that's where the modular program allows you to do that. So I decided, I'll do the CPL and I'll do my instructor rating instead of the multi IFR, because I honestly didn't find the market for multi IFR pilots at that point, 250 pilots. And I did my instructor rating, and the school's pretty okay with that. Do as you please. You pay for your program, you pay as you go. It's really up to you. And that's one of the biggest reasons I chose modular, the flexibility of training. Really put my mind at ease, like, okay, worst case scenario, I'll postpone my CPO. Something like that.
It does give us some kind of flexibility in terms of what do you do, what do you want to do, when you want to go. You want to take air law or you want to take some other exam.
True.
Next month you can do that. It's not a problem. Whereas these cadet programs, you've got the structure where you like, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, you've got to go to solo, you've got to finish your multi-engine rating, you've got to finish the IFR rating. But then you've got these pros and cons when you see it. Cadet program gives you this added benefit of you signing the LOI, whereas modular program you're all alone.
You're taking that risk, right? You're jumping into the unknown.
Yes. So you give one thing, and you lose one thing
You can't
as well.
get it all.
Yeah, it's like that. So it's just you've got to play your luck, and somehow you just make it. Life just rolls on.
I know you see a lot of motivational videos. There are some videos that say that you have to trust the process.
Yes.
The dots will connect.
Yes.
Be patient and
exactly. Believe in yourself, trust the process, and go through it. Yeah, and now you're here. So you're pretty much, you're such a good live example to a lot of students here who you believed yourself. You did believe yourself. You went through it. You went through the COVID program. You went through the COVID phase. Now you're flying as a flight instructor. You're earning money on the side. You're earning hours as well. And once in a while, I think I'm pretty straightforward. You're gonna reach that potential of being an airline pilot as well. So I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah. Moving on. Now you've selected this model program. You went through the cadet programs as well. You went through integrated program and all of the other things. You've researched. You've selected the school. You did all of the finalizing process. Got the application fees. Now, when it comes to the study visa process of how Canada works, can you just give us a timeline of how many months it took for you, and what was the process like, and how was your total experience with that?
If you ask me, Canada study, any visa program with Canada is very self-explanatory on the internet, but it is slow and it is long. It's not something that is quick. You have to be patient. I applied for my biometrics. I think I got the biometrics really quickly, the appointment. Got that done. And then after that, it was a long wait. Because now I had to give the government of Canada a proof of financial documents, and my bank had not approved the loan yet. So now I'm waiting for the loan approval letter. But in that process, I filled out every other form there is on the immigration. And I uploaded the loan approval letter. I'm like, okay, now what? And I'm like, oh, the medical. But I haven't got any information about that. The government hasn't told me anything. So it was a long wait for my medical. I think it was a 3-month wait, to be honest. 2 months.
Okay.
Something like that. I don't remember the exact timeline. My apologies, but it was around 2 months or something. And then when I did get the medical, I got that done, put the results, and then 1 month later, this was in the month of just at the start of September, where I got my passport request. So And my intake was for September 16th, somewhere over there. That was my intake. It was just at that month, so gave my passport, booked my tickets in a short notice, paid a lot of money for those tickets, and reached Canada September 13th, just in the nick of time for my intake. Process works out, but
Yeah,
was I calm during the process? No. Was I stressed? Yes.
definitely.
I was asking a lot of people, what's your time at? Why are you getting it? Why am I not getting it? And stuff like that. So,
What's wrong with my application? What have I done wrong? Yeah, pretty much.
exactly, right? So I did the SDS too. I did the SDS. I did a nice SOP, but you got it. I didn't.
Yeah, I was about to ask you that. Do you take the SDS route or do you take the non-SDS route? And did you pay the GIC? And there's so many other things, so many other aspects of it.
It's a love-hate relationship. I'll be very frank.
It's good word. And this was pre-COVID as well, because correct me if I'm wrong, after COVID, the timelines were so messed up that people were waiting for more than 10 months, 11 months for even
yeah.
SDS route.
Yeah.
When SDS route, you're supposed to give them within few weeks, at least few months as well. But then people were waiting for quite a while now. But obviously, we can't blame them because of got less people working on it. It was horrible.
It was something that they could have handled better, but they didn't. Again, we had the Afghanistan crisis too, and Canada wanted to help the people from Afghanistan. So they had IRCC completely dedicated for Afghanistan. Even if you call them, they wouldn't attend. And if they did, and you told them it was for a study visa and you're not from Afghanistan, they'd be like, yeah, keep the call. It was like that. But I heard the rejection rates have been going up too. So I'm not sure exactly what's happening. But apply, do your best, write the best SOP you have, give it all you got. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, figure another plan out. It's just something like that. There's nothing you can't control it. So
That's very true, and then let's come to a point where whoever is going to apply to Canada or wherever any of the countries always have a plan B of how to study visa. If you've got a possibility of them rejecting you, what are you going to do after that? Just keep a good plan right in place so that you can work it out ASAP. You can reapply, make a plan B just in case if it doesn't work out.
yeah, what are the odds of it all getting right in the first year? So they used to say, if it can go wrong, it will go wrong.
It will go wrong.
So
yes.
I had my option 2 was South Africa, option 3 was Australia. All ICAO countries basically. I did not want to give the Indian RPR exam.
You're looking very, very ahead, and I'm really glad that you did that. You've got your study visa, you landed back in Canada. What was the first experience when you set foot on the Canadian soil, when you see the cold air that hits right on your face? Do you feel something like, oh my God, what have I done?
I landed in Toronto, so I have my cousins living there.
Okay.
So the first week when I was there, it was fun. It was really fun. We went out, downtown tour. Let's do this, let's do that. They've been living here all their life, so they knew all the fun spots. They took me there. I think I got a reality check when I entered Winnipeg, because now I'm on my own. And the moment I got out of the Winnipeg airport, that cold hit me. It was -2. I'm like, wow, it's cold. But there was this calming moment when I stepped out the airport. There was this guy who walked up to me and he said, "Bhaiya, kahan jana?" Straight up. So
You're
then
back
the
home.
taxi driver, I'm like, I'm back home. We can speak Hindi. We went to St. Andrews, and it was a huge reality check when I saw how empty Winnipeg is.
Okay.
Like, we come from very populated cities. I come from Chennai, Kerala. Toronto is extremely crowded. So when you come from such a crowded city or a country in general, you come to Winnipeg and you be like, there's no one here. And we were driving down Highway 8, empty, very, very empty, no street lights, no highway lights. It's not something that you'd expect of, a developed country. You have that vision. It's going to be awesome. So that's when I actually started looking at Google Map and thinking, maybe I'm being taken away by this guy. I got to check.
Yeah.
Got to make sure I'm going to Harvs Air. First month was very, very tough. I was very homesick. It was just vast empty lands and I was not used to it. No. Felt like a fish out of water. I kid you not.
You came to Harvs Air, you were a bit homesick, you started flying. What was the first time when you got your wings? What was the first feeling you got when you did that? Were you proud of yourself that you did this, you took this path? Or were you looking back, you were like, nah, why didn't I do this?
Interesting, because flight training is fun. Very, very important to know flight training is fun. And me, being a student, from a very competitive country like India, I did not have fun. I took it way too seriously, and that cost me my training. I used to focus on the instruments and fix it. Like just look at them. Or I wouldn't look out. I would look at all the instruments. I'd fly perfectly. And then my instructor was like, yeah, I'm going to cover these instruments for you. And when he did, I couldn't fly. I just couldn't fly because I'm not used to it. I used to fly sim a lot, so I kind of knew what the instruments were doing. So if if I could have changed one thing, it would have been I should have had a little bit more fun in my training, just be a little bit more relaxed. You're flying a plane to look outside. I started having fun at about 50 hours, 60 hours. That's when I'm like, I'm going to have fun with this plane. And I started doing things just to see how the plane would react. Like how you buy a car and then you start playing around with the car. Maybe I'll give it a little bit more accelerator. What if I stomp on the brake? What if I pull the handbrake? Let's see what happens. Right? So I played around with the plane, obviously within POH limits, and kind of had fun with it. And that's when training really began. That's when I really started enjoying the experience. But till then, I was all stressed. I'm like, oh, I'm not doing well. Oh, I'm not. That guy got ahead of me. He's doing better than me. Oh, I'm slacking.
Even I've done that, to be honest. I was looking into instruments initially when I was flying. I think it's a very basic instinct. But my instructor was like, you're flying VFR. Just
Exactly.
see outside. Outside's so beautiful. Why do you want to see
I
the
know.
instruments? And now, if I'm turning, I see whether I'm climbing, I'm descending just by looking outside. And I love it. I love it. I hate looking into the instruments nowadays. I look at the VSI because I want to see whether I'm descending or I'm climbing. I see that. Don't judge me on that. But then I keep looking out, keeping my distance, keeping lookouts all throughout the flight. Why did you take this position of getting a CFI rating when you had other ratings to achieve? You've got your instruments, you've got your multi-engine. What made you choose that?
Because it was because of my instructors. My instructors really took their time. I wouldn't say I was a star student. No way. I took my time to get my ratings. I took my hours. So it was my instructors who put in the work and the effort, and they made me the pilot I am today. And they have had such a positive impact in my life. I decided maybe I could give back. I've made so many mistakes in my training that I know exactly what not to do. All I have to tell them is the opposite, like do this, because if you do that, it's going to cost you because it cost me. So, and it kind of helps. And I'm enjoying flight instructing, enjoying teaching students. It's hard, it's mentally taxing, but when the student does finally go solo, the smile on their face says it all. So, and they look up to you. They honestly do look up to you. So you are put in a position of responsibility, even more than an airline pilot, I'd say, because you are training another pilot. If you as an instructor make mistakes or teach him bad habits, he's going to carry that forth throughout his career. And that's not going to change. So you have to set a good example. That pressure kind of keeps that job alive, I guess.
Well, that's fair enough because it's a very rewarding job. When I asked my instructor as well, why did she leave a very stable, cushy job of her flying Boeing 737s? And why is she flying the smaller planes? And when I asked her, she was looking at me. She's like, "What do you think? Why do you think?" And I was like, "I don't know. That's why I asked you." And she was like, "It gives me a very rewarding feeling that my students are achieving something, but they've been dreaming about, and I'm teaching them. That's such a rewarding job." And flight instructors actually do not get a lot of recognition when you see pilots. This guy who's flying metal tubes. But then flight instructors, on the other hand, is what made them in the first. I don't know why you guys are so underpaid as well. So moving on, how is the weather hindering your training now? How many VFR days do you get to fly?
That is one of the biggest things about Manitoba. You have a lot of VFR days compared to Ontario, compared to anywhere else in Canada. The prairies, as they call it, is a large, vast lands of farmland. It's flat. We don't have topographical features. We don't have mountains. We don't have hills. So we do not have a lot of cloud activity. It's largely VFR. What we do have is high winds and cold temperatures. So there are days when it goes to gusting 35, gusting 40, and those are days we don't fly. Our school allows us to fly all the way up to gusting 35, and it's not the best experience to train in. It's something you want the student to feel. So when they do get in that situation themselves, they'll be able to figure it out. But it's not something you have to train. So if you see out of 365 days, I would give it a solid 300 out of 365 you can fly. Don't quote me on it. If you do not get 300 days, do not tell me Rohit told me 300 days. The weather is not behaving like what Rohit told you.
Yeah, it doesn't. Trust me. 300 days is quite a lot when you compare to back in the UK, when we've got 3,000 feet of ceiling right there. If you want to do climb and descent, how are we supposed to do that when we've got such a cloud ceiling there?
When you told me you're training in the UK, my first reaction was like,
Now, moving on, you've got in your people, you've got in your CPL, you've got in your flight instructor rating. So, what's your future strategy looking at? What's the next rating you want to get? You want to get instruments? You want to get multi-engine?
I'm working towards a multi. I've downloaded the POH. I haven't studied it. I'd rather watch Netflix and eat chips, being lazy as a student. But yeah, the multi IFR is next, and then a couple of maybe ATPL exams. See where it goes from there. Yeah, I do not think I would get the float rating. It's not my cup of tea. Maybe if I had the money and I wanted to do something just for the fun of it, yeah. But multi IFR seems to be the best option.
For students who are watching it, who wants to go and do the piloting back in Canada, what tips and tricks would you give them? Do you prefer them to come here? Do you prefer them to go for some other country, or which flight school they're supposed to take? What tips and tricks would you give them?
A lot of people ask me, which school do I go for? Do I choose Canada or do I choose the States? And that's when I really tell them, like, this is your life. You choose your school. You don't want to regret it later. So do not go based on my opinions. If it were up to me, I would say come to Canada, come to Harvs Air. You will not regret it. But just because I've had a positive experience does not mean XYZ will have a positive experience. So do your research. To all the students out there, do your research. Really just sit down, Google. You have a laptop, you have internet, nothing stopping you from not getting the information. Nothing. Maybe a dead battery, but you can charge it. So I would say Google as much as you can. Try and stay one step ahead. Always have one kind of a plan B. Don't give up your pilot dreams. Your plan B should not be engineer. Your plan B should be, if not Canada, I'll go to Australia. If not Australia, South Africa. If not South Africa, I will go to the States. If not States, I will go to India. I'll fly in India. And I did my research for Indian schools too. I was looking up chimes. I was looking up Indira Gandhi. Indira Gandhi IGRUA, Rashtriya Aviation Udara Academy. I was looking up all of that. I was just keeping my options open. But my goal was to be a pilot. So if I'm not doing the research, if I'm not getting myself there and I'm relying on someone else, I wouldn't be too happy about it. So my advice, do your research, do your homework, pick a school of your choice, and then socialize, network, and confirm your decisions. But don't rely on the people there to make decisions for you. Kind of.
That's a really good point, because the podcast I did with an instructor as well said the same thing, very similar thing. Is because you've got to give emphasis on research. Unless you don't research yourself, I don't know what you're doing. Because these flight schools, few flight schools are very receptive towards getting money from you guys, and you've got to select few schools which have good alumni, that they are responsive. The amount of flight instructors they've got, the amount of planes they have, everything you've got to see, you've got to collect it, and you've got to research. Contact people, contact the students. The best option of getting a good review is to contact the students and the instructors. Instructors might be a little biased, but the students are where you should go for. You go for the alumni or either the students. They are the ones who are going to tell you exactly the similar thing what they want to tell you, actually, because other people are going to be really biased. And that's a really good point you said. Rohit, you said this before, that the reason why you chose Canada is because of PGWP. Now, how does it work out? What is it all about, if you don't mind me asking?
So the summary is very simple. If you study in Canada at a DLI, Designated Learning Institute, for more than 8 months as a full-time student, and you comply to the laws stated in your study permit, you are eligible for a post-graduation work permit. Eligible. You're not entitled, you're eligible. Apply for it. If you get it, then you have an open work permit, which is valid all across Canada. The duration of which is up to the immigration officials. It could be based on the number of months you studied. It could be based on whether you have a job. It could be based on a lot of other factors. But ideally, if you study for a year, you want to expect you would get a year of work permit. Something like that, in that ballpark.
Towards an end of this podcast, I don't want to take much of your time. But what's the regard with scholarships? Because I see quite a few scholarships around the UK, but I've never seen a few of them in Canada. I think I've seen few in the United States as well. But scholarships in this industry is something which is a black point towards. But then what's the regard? What have you ever applied to one back in Canada or anything as such?
This is one area where I would not have no any information about. I have not applied for a scholarship, and I wouldn't know if there was one. I knew a couple of friends who were from Ontario, and they use an OSAP program, Ontario Student Application Program, or something to get some kind of funds. But again, I'm not Canadian. I do not know what that is. So
Now moving on, Rohit, just one last question before we end over and move to the next section of the podcast. If you want to give the tips to few of the students who are flying now, what tips would you give?
blank, have fun. Know what lesson, know what lesson you're studying tomorrow. Read up about it. Again, you have the resources from your school. Read up about it. Try, expect your instructor is going to teach you this. And when you go in the air and your instructor teaches you the exact same thing, you're already one step ahead of the game because you're not trying to learn in the cockpit at this point. You've done your homework, you've learned on the ground. In the cockpit, now you're just practicing what you've learned with the aid of the instructor. The cockpit or the flight deck is not a place to learn. So learn as much as you can on the ground before you go up and have a lot of fun when you go up.
Final part of the podcast, Rohit. I'm so glad that we are able to do this in the first place. Is we've got a few rapid fire questions for you, if you don't mind, before we end off this podcast. The first question is: Did you have any in-flight emergencies when you were flying all the way through 500 hours you've got now?
Couple of times in the cold, especially on a forced approach, when you train in forced approaches, because it's so cold, and if a student punches power in during an overshoot, the air is just too cold and too dense for the engine to fire up, and that's when the engine starts sputtering and coughing. So this was when we were just above the tree line, and we had picked the road. And when that engine started coughing, I looked at the road. I'm like, maybe we could put it down there. We'll see what happens. But then the engine kicked back up to life. I've not had anything else apart from that. So knock on wood.
No, pretty much actually. You were very close to getting an engine failure. Uh, the next thing is, which is one golden tip you want to give to students, just one of them that they can remember their entire life throughout their training as well.
Keep learning. Even if you're an instructor, keep learning. Don't stop learning.
Definitely, a good pilot always always expands his knowledge. That's really good. The third question is, what is your end-term goal? What are you aiming at? Do you want to be an instructor all throughout your years, or are you aiming for that cushy major carrier aircraft?
My dream is still to fly the 777. To be very
777.
specific, the Emirates 777. Very, very specific. So I am going to work towards that. After that, if I don't like it, I'll how back on instructing.
Fair enough. That's really good. That's good. That's good that we've got a plan B and then you've got a plan A as well, because having an end-term goal helps you out, helps you shape what you want to do. And the last and final question that I wanted to ask you before we end of this podcast is, which is one aircraft, obviously Boeing 777 that you said before, which is one aircraft that you've always wanted to work in, but you wouldn't be able to because it's retired or it's something which is obsolete.
The MD-11.
Or definitely, it's beautiful, isn't it? It's something to it. It's MD-11s. I love them, and I think the Lufthansa cargo flies to Mumbai with MD-11s, and I think they've made it obsolete now. If I'm not sure, but then there are very few MD-11s that are flying.
Just a few in service, but they're pulling them out.
Yeah, they're pulling them out. It's such a beautiful aircraft.
I think Lufthansa retired their MD-11s.
They did. They did, didn't they? Yeah, I think they did,
Yes,
because
I've Instagram post about it.
Yes. I've seen them. And I was so majorly disappointed. And the other aircraft that I've always loved is obviously the Boeing 747. That she's gonna be there in my heart for sure. But then the TriStar, Elton 11.
I'm not. Is that Russian? I'm not sure what that.
No, it's the Lockheed TriStar,
Okay.
Elton 11, and so beautiful. They're quite similar to MD-11s, but then they were one of the most major advanced aircraft back then. Rohit, I'm so glad that we're having this talk, we're having this podcast today. I'm so glad that we're doing it, and I'm really hopeful that you're going to work towards that Emirates Boeing 777.
Yes. All the very best to you, to Junaid. Hope you get to wherever you want to go to. CPR, multi-IFR, maybe an instructor. You seem to have already grasped the fact that instructing is a rewarding job. Hop on the wagon, be an instructor.
I'll follow your path. That's why you're carving me one, and then I'm just gonna follow you. That's it. And I'm so glad that I'll be doing this. And before we end this one question, I just came to my mind. I should have asked you before. So I've seen you from the video. Why isn't Harvs Air releasing any kind of video now?
It's the winter, it's cold, and the person who does this for Harvs Air is also a very famous wedding photographer, event planner. So he is very busy all year round. He is currently doing a shoot with Look New Video. I'm still not sure what's in the works. Living with series, or the flying, the thing that he did, the videos that you see in the website. That was a phase where they wanted to up their advertising strategy and get a student's perspective.
And I'm so glad that they did it because it does. It gives a good perspective of how the school is. I was so disappointed when they were not releasing any of the videos because it was so fun seeing what people are. Well, Rohit, we can do this all throughout the night, and there is a limit to how much we can speak. So I'm so glad that you came today and we spoke and we went through all of this podcast questions. I hope it's going to be helpful for a lot of students. I'm really glad that you came over, and thank you so much.
And I hope it helps people out there, and I hope to see this live very soon. Edit it well, make me look glamorous.
I will try my level best. Thank you so much.
All right, Gina, love you. Bye bye.